Hello and welcome to another video and podcast from Fantasy Football Scout. My name is Joe and today I'm joined by Mark, aka the FPL General, to look ahead to Gameweek 30. Will he wildcard? Does his team need it? What is the template wildcard so far? And who are the best strikers to get in, whether you're wildcarding or not? Welcome, Mark. How are you?
I'm good, Joe. Good to be back. What is FPL? That's the longest break I ever remember. I don't think I've ever switched off that much,
No.
which was really nice because you couldn't really think about. There was no point planning anything until we got the FA Cup game, so it was a very welcome, forced switch off from all things FPL. So slowly getting back into it this Monday. We've got the deadline on Tuesday, so a pretty quick turnaround for those of us who've been in a slumber for the last couple of weeks. But feeling very refreshed and very excited. Kind of looking at it now as a mini season we're coming back to, and looking forward to hopefully smashing it.
Yeah, definitely. We had the FA Cup games at the weekend, which gave us an insight into who is going to be blanking or possibly blanking in Game Week 34. We're recording this on around 1 o'clock on Monday, ahead of the Game Week 30 deadline. The reason I've been so specific there is because we don't know when we're going to get the actual details of who is going to be doubling in Game Week 33. And who will definitely be blanking Game Week 34. There's some very likely candidates there. We won't have that definite. By the time you watch this, which I think we're going out Monday evening or Monday late afternoon, you should have some insight. You may have some insight, but you may not. We may not until later in the week. We're not sure. So those wildcarding now are taking a slight gamble, but nevertheless, as we'll chat with Mark about, there are some teams that perhaps need it. Perhaps they remove certain good players like Salah, Isak and co ahead of the, for many, a free hit in Game Week 29 when Liverpool didn't play. They might have done that. So they might be in need of that. Before we go on, just a quick word from our sponsors, Huel.
This episode of Fantasy Football Scout is sponsored by Huel Black Edition. Huel Black Edition is ready to drink. It's a meal in a bottle and contains all the nutrients you need, including the right amount of protein, essential fats, carbohydrates, fiber, vitamins, and minerals as part of a balanced diet. Right now, new customers watching this, Fantasy Football Scout viewers, can visit huel.com/FFS and you'll get £10 off your first order when you use the code FFS at the checkout. And you'll also get a free gift. So that's £10 off your first order, not 10%, 10 whole British pounds. A great deal. Now, I've used Huel genuinely for about 5 years, way before they asked to sponsor this, don't worry. I used to get it when it was just a powder and you pre-mixed it. But now it's even better. It comes all pre-mixed, ready in a bottle to just open and drink. Now, I love it, and the reason I use it is, well, twofold. One, I know I'm getting everything I need in a meal, and if you're short on time, if you're not a great cook like me, then you're just never quite sure that you're getting everything you need when you buy this stuff. Well, Huel, the promise is you are getting everything you need, like I mentioned above. But also, the great thing about it is it's high in protein, 35 grams in protein in every bottle, and you know exactly how many calories you're getting, right? 400 calories. In a bottle. I've actually been going hard on Huel for the last couple of months, and I've actually, regular viewers might notice, I've actually lost 2 stone since the start of the year, and Huel has helped me do that. Again, you got to take it as part of a balanced diet, of course, but it's really, really helpful if you're just trying to watch what you eat. But it's also helpful just to get everything you need. So I love Huel. I genuinely have used it lots. I like vanilla. I'm going to open it in front of you now. I like vanilla. Take the lid off. Get some on my fingers. I really like vanilla, but there is chocolate that I've tried. There is iced coffee, apparently. I haven't tried that, so I'm definitely going to try that one. And there's strawberry and banana as well. I think there's a couple of others, but you'll have to check it out. But it's very, very nice. Beautiful. It's a bit like a milkshake. I'll leave it on screen. It's a bit like a milkshake. If you've never tried it, you can just pop down to your Tesco or Sainsbury's. They sell them there quite often in like the sandwich aisle, and next to the drinks there'll be Huel. Give it a go. But even if you just want to dive in, as I've said, go to the website. The link's on screen if you're watching on YouTube. If you're listening on podcast, I'll say it again, www.huel.com/FFS, and you'll get £10 off and a free gift when you use the code FFS at the checkout. I really do enjoy it. I'm really happy to promote this. Sometimes, on these videos, you might be asked to promote something and you don't really know what you're doing because you've never used it before and it's a bit fake. Genuinely, I've used it for years. So any other questions, if you follow me on X, at @fantasyed, @_fantasyed, you can DM me and ask me any questions about Huel. But it's really worth it. I've got a subscription, so I think it's 14 bottles every 2 weeks sent to me from Huel, and it just comes and I just restock the fridge and I have one a day. So really, really good. Once again, just for clarity, this episode of Fantasy Football Scout is sponsored by Huel Black Edition, if you hadn't guessed that. And you can go to huel.com/FFS today and use the code FFS to get £10 off your first order and a free gift. Go give it a try.
Okay, let's have a look and see how you got on in Game Week 29. I'm going to quickly read out who did well and who didn't, and then you can talk about your transfers, just because this was so long ago. And I don't know about you, but I'm listening to some FPL podcasts. I am literally fast forwarding the bits where they're talking about their previous team because it was so long ago. I don't care. I only care about Game Week 30 now. Anyway, you had Pickford, blank, Nico Williams, blank, Castagna, 6 points, great, Gabriel, 5 points, Mikolenko, blank. Bruno Fernandes, 17 points, absolutely brilliant. He came in. Cliver, blank. Brian Mbomo, 6 points. Bowen, 5 points. Chris Wood, who is now injured. We don't know for how long for, a blank. And Haaland was your captain. And he cost you points again. You got him in and he cost you points because I suspect if you didn't get Haaland, you would have captained Bruno Fernandes, who got 17 points. So Haaland, once again, even when he scores, he costs us. And on your bench, absolutely nothing. Salah, Konsa, Chiwomi's still there, and Valdemarson. Okay, so who left and who's coming in, and where does this leave you?
Yeah, I'll keep it short because I also don't care about what happened in Game Week 29. It feels like I'm looking at a team from last season. My team from last season. That's the vibes it's given me. I took a -4, 3 transfers, sold Trent, Palmer, Isak, and brought in Nico Williams, Bruno Fernandes, and Erling Haaland. So it worked out quite well. After the -4, left me with 59 points, and I went from 59k back into the top 50k, and now 47. So bang on where I want to be. Just want to get a top 50k and be done with it this season. Get another one under the belt. So yeah, plenty of chips left, and in a very good position. So yeah, like I said, really looking forward to the last 9 game weeks now. Okay, so the important thing about this is because everyone's team's going to be different. So you're going to see a lot of things from content creators this week saying, Wildcard Game Week 30, Wildcard Game Week 30. You've got to look at your own team and think, is it the best for your team? And there are certain elements of Mark's team here, which I think it could perhaps apply to. You mentioned Palmer's gone. He's back in training. He plays Spurs. He got 18 points last time he played them. You might want him back. You've also got rid of Isak. He plays Brentford at home. He could have scored another 18 points when he played them last time out. He did actually score as well. And, of course, you got Haaland as well, who's eating up, not content with costing you, I think, 10 points last time if you'd have captained Bruno Fernandes. He's eating up that nearly 15 million of your budget sitting there. And so if you're in that position, you might think, oh, my God, I've got to move. Some people have removed Salah as well. You've got Salah on your bench. But Salah, with Haaland gone against Leicester, Salah's suddenly probably the best captaincy. You're certainly going to want him. So there are certain elements of that. So we'll look at what's applicable to your team. I look at your team and I think you're 50-50. I think it's not too bad. One transfer, maybe two, and that's very passable. But it could be that you want to wildcard. So what's your inkling at the moment in terms of wildcarding? Yeah, so I haven't pressed the button yet, which is Monday afternoon. So it's getting to the point where I need to decide whether I'm going to do it or not. I always feel with a wild card, and maybe not everybody's the same, but I usually just get to a point where it just feels like it's the right time, and I feel like I'm there. I logged in after 2 weeks, looked at my team, don't really like my team. The midfield's fine. I don't like the defence. Pickford's playing Liverpool. And the main issue, Haaland's in a protective boot. Chris Wood's picked up an injury, which doesn't sound great either. And I'm already light on the bench. And we have a good idea of what's going to happen. We don't have confirmation of when those games are going to be, but we know, first of all, Crystal Palace, Newcastle, we know what's happened with them. Game Week 32. I've got no Newcastle. I've got no Palace. I like their fixtures in 30, 31 as well. So in particular Crystal Palace. They're playing Southampton this week, and I don't have any. So the plan was to get Munoz, but now I've got forward issues, so I'll be looking at -4s. I've only got one free transfer. It just, I'm pretty set on just pressing the button today, and giving myself 24 hours to play around with it. But to be honest, I think it'll be one of the easiest wildcards I've ever put together. I think they're all going to look the same. The fixtures kind of make a lot of our decisions for us, just one or two slight variations. So yeah, I think in my scenario, I feel like it's time.
Yeah. What we'll do a bit later, we're going to show what is the sort of wildcard template at the moment, or near to it, things I've been looking at on social media, and the sort of teams we might go for now if we wildcarded. Just on the flip side, for me, I am not going to wildcard this week. I've got Isak, I've got Palmer, I've got Salah, who's my captain. I've got a Palace defender, I've got Gabriel, I've got an Arsenal defender then. I've got a Nottingham Forest defender, and they're amazing at the moment. I've got Cliver against Ipswich. I just need to make one transfer really and put Marmoush or Mateta in. I can only get one of them, so I'm not going to wildcard because I can't get Mateta in, for example. Marmoush or Mateta. So that's for me, and that's the flip side really. So we're just showing all different elements. You don't have to now, but I probably will wildcard in 31 or 32. But I want to do it as near to the bench boost as I can. Now, you presumably in your wildcard, Mark, will be looking to bench boost in Game Week 33 and then free hit in Game Week 34, would I be right? And if so, are you slightly nervous about wildcard in Game Week 30, given all the things that could happen before you bench boost in Game Week 33, and you could have a bench of injured players?
Yeah, it's always a huge factor. I always want to bench boost as soon as possible after the wild card. I'm actually looking at I'm weighing up both Game Week 32 or Game Week 33 for the bench boost, because you could just bench boost in 32 with your Palace and Newcastle guys. I'm going to be tripled up on those anyway, and at the time of wildcard activation today, I know exactly what Game Week 32 is going to look like, but I don't know for sure what Game Week 33 is going to look like unless we get the information on Monday, which is probably unlikely. It might not come till Friday, for example. So I'm definitely split at the moment on bench boost 32 versus 33, and I probably need to look at it a bit more, because depending on which one I go for, that might impact which goalkeeper duo I go for example, and maybe a couple of little bits, the bench picks, etc., etc. So, but certainly free hit 34. I'm just not going to overthink it. It's just I'm going to have a lot of players who don't have a fixture that week. Don't need to worry about it, and I'm glad I've kept the free hit for that, because it does make the wildcard planning and the bench boost planning a little bit easier. So yeah, it's looking like wildcard 30, then bench boost 32 or 33, and then free hit 34. And I think that's me for chips in. I've used triple captain and I've used assistant manager.
Okay, so I mean, I did a little bit of planning to look at a bench boost 32, what that would look like if I wildcarded before that, and what a bench boost 32 would look like. And I didn't like it myself, because yes, you mentioned you bench boost those Newcastle and Palace assets, but of course you wouldn't be. You'd be playing them in your 11.
Yeah.
So you want your worst players, and that's going to be your single game week players. So you're probably looking at bench boosting Cliver at home to Fulham, who, for example, he hasn't actually done well at home. So you're looking at bench boost with that, possibly with Raya at home to Brentford. So you've got to hope Brian Mbomo doesn't score there. So you're looking at that. Maybe you've got another Arsenal. Maybe you've got a double Arsenal defence. So all you need is a Brentford goal to that bench boost to be pretty much in tatters, really.
Or all you need is an Arsenal clean sheet for it to be a successful
Exactly.
bench
But
boost.
they're just single game week players. Whereas, let's put the fixtures up here. You just get more bites of the cherry with game week 33. So you've got more potential for your bench boost to succeed, I think, in game week 33. So game week 32, you've got your six Crystal Palace and Newcastle players, but you're essentially bench boosting with maybe some Arsenal, maybe Bournemouth, maybe I'm just looking at the sort of players I would get in. Maybe you've got a Wolves player in or a Nottingham Forest player. So you've got these quite good single game week players with okay fixtures, and that's what the bench boost in. However, if you stock up now on game week 33 players, the bench boost there. So Crystal Palace again, great, they're already in place. Newcastle don't, so they play Aston Villa. So you've got a lot of Newcastle players in your team there. So you don't want them. But then you've got Man City double against Everton, Aston Villa. So suddenly you've got Gvardiol, Marmoush, Savinho, maybe Haaland would be back as well. And then you've got Aston Villa themselves. Maybe Rashford gets the nod. Maybe they favour Watkins in the European games. So they're against Newcastle at home and Man City away. Both could score there. Someone like Konsa could do okay. Arsenal, once again, you're actually not just bench boosting single game week Arsenal. You're bench boosting Gabriel, Raya against Ipswich and Crystal Palace. That's much better. And so I think you've got that slightly a bigger cherry to take a bite out of.
Looking at those fixtures as well, I think what might end up being one of the main deciding factors is the goalkeeper duo. Because game week 32, it's Henderson and Pope. But in my mind, Henderson and Pope are not in the top 3 assets from their teams. And I don't really want either long term. Whereas I'd be very comfortable getting a David Raya. I'd be very comfortable getting a Martinez. I could even go Ederson. So I think for that reason, that's another tick in the box for me for game week 33 instead, if they fall the way we expect them to. So I think that's what I will end up doing, setting up with bench boost 33 in mind.
Yeah, I think so too. I just think you've got a better chance there. Because as you said, if it's game week 32, ideally you probably want Henderson and Pope. But as you said, you wouldn't want them going forward. Because, I mean, I've got Henderson at the moment, quite happy with that. Covers me for Crystal Palace defence. But ideally, when I'm wildcard, I want Munoz. I don't want Henderson. And I don't really want Nick Pope as well. So it would be someone like Raya and another goalkeeper. I'm not quite sure who. Maybe I would just sort of hope there's a possible double game week coming up in 36 and just play it like that. But essentially, I would have... it was a double game weeker, so it would be maybe the Aston Villa goalkeeper, maybe that's possible. And as you said, there is always Ederson as well, but that would be.
I actually seen it just on the 33 goalkeepers as well. I've seen if you mentioned if you want to save money, you could just go Areola home to Southampton. If you don't want a double game week goalkeeper, of course we'd all like one, but even an Emi Martinez he's got Newcastle and Man City. It's not great. They're going to be I don't know if Europe's around that game week or whatever, but they're obviously still in Europe. So yeah, if you might want to, depending on what we hear about Erling Haaland, you might want to leave yourself flexible to get him back in 33. And for that reason, someone like an Areola might be quite useful.
That's why I think someone like Palmer, or indeed Saka, and Isak can easily go to Haaland and another one. But as is shown last week, I think with Haaland now, obviously he's injured at the moment, but I'm not worried about him ever now. Bruno Fernandes was the guy I was worried about last time I didn't own him, and that proved right. But yeah, this is the big fixture, the Leicester game, and Haaland looks like he's out for that. I mean, or at least we will not know by the deadline whether he's fit for that. And that's the game you would definitely want him in. The rest, Erling Haaland has let us down for 15 million. And that's something I guess FPL will be looking at next year. Will anyone go for him at that price? Possibly.
And that's if I commit to the wild card game week 30, I don't mind just committing to it properly and spending the money and not being able to get back to Haaland because as we've seen this season, there's plenty of different ways to play the game, and I'll just get 3 different City players even if he is back.
Okay, let's have a look at a table. So before we look at this sort of wildcard template so far and what Mark will be doing, the sort of players we're getting, we'll go particularly with forwards. The reason this is interesting is because whether you're wildcarding or not, you're going to be in the market for forwards. I'm not going to wildcard this week, but I've only got Isak. I've got Chris Wood, I've got Cunha. So I'm going to be playing 5 midfields and I'll have a transfer. And there's a couple of players I've got in mind who are both on this list here. So you've got free reign if you're wildcarding, you can get anyone. So I've sorted this by goals. This is for 2025, the calendar year. Mateta is top for goals. He's also top for minutes per expected goal involvement, every 98 minutes. He's 7.5. He's got 64 points over this period. Created 8 chances, 16 shots inside the box, 12 on target. I mean, he's doing everything right. I would presume he's an absolute lock. For me, who's making a decision, I have another player in mind over Mateta. It was his first game back in the FA Cup, and I don't know. I just wonder whether when players wear masks, it just takes them a little while to get used to it. I'm sure he would be, I'm sure, but I don't know. I've just got that nagging doubt in my mind. Will he get me a return this week?
Yeah, the masks definitely are not. They're not ideal. I know if I was playing five-a-side on a Tuesday night, I wouldn't like to be wearing a mask. Not that would my performances are never good anyway. Never mind wearing a mask, but it's not. I think so. I've heard a few podcasts this week. You know, some people are saying he wasn't great in the cup and didn't look himself and stuff like that. But that's not gonna change my thinking. It's the bigger sample size, having an incredibly good season. I was in the scout members area during the international break, and his name kept popping up in almost every metric I looked at forwards. He's top 5 for XG, he's top 5 for big chances. It's a no-brainer with the double game week coming up. And even if he is, a little bit, if he's not 100% just yet, even a 50% fit Mateta against that Southampton team is going to be absolutely fine. So yeah, I wouldn't overthink it with the face mask or anything like that. And I think he's one of the easiest wildcard picks.
Okay. Yes, I think so too. He plays Brighton in Game Week 31. That's the sort of anything can happen game. But Brighton are a bit better defensively than they have been. Certainly, and they will have that beating that Crystal Palace gave them weighing heavily on their mind. So I just wonder if that's going to be quite a tight game. But nevertheless, these tight games, all you need is a bit of brilliance from Eze or Mateta there. Next up is Isak, already in my team. I would say another lock. You would imagine he looks like the best captain in Game Week 32. His minutes per expected goal involvement every 110 minutes this calendar year. He's got 7 goals, 14 shots inside the box, 9 on target. Yeah, I mean he's just absolute lock, I would imagine.
Yeah, it's kind of frustrating the way things are falling. I think all these wildcard teams are going to be the same, and everyone's going to be buying the same players who are not wildcarding. So I mean, it always happens. But yeah, Mateta, Isak, I think you pick those two first on your wildcard and you build around it. That's your first 2 building blocks. Isak, I reluctantly sold him to be able to get Bruno and Haaland last game out, and the plan was probably wildcard 31. But if I can just wildcard now and get him back, because I don't want to be without Isak even for 1 game week. He's too good. I like him too much, and I will not enjoy watching Newcastle if I don't own him. So again, it's another reason. But the Haaland injury, the Wood injury, just gives me an excuse to go back a week earlier to get Isak.
Even if he didn't have 2 home games against Manchester United, Crystal Palace in Game Week 32, and is the runaway top captain choice for that week. He's got Brentford at home next, and away he looked great against them this season. And then he's got Leicester away, which is, as we know, the best fixture you can get this season. So yeah, absolute lock. Next name up. This is where it gets a bit tricky. I actually think there's another name here that's a lock, but it's not this guy. It's Watkins. Watkins is next. His minutes per expected goal involvement every 180 minutes. They're still in Europe. They now have options up front, lots of them. Asensio, Rashford, and of course Watkins there. He's got 5 goals, 2 assists, so 7 attacking returns, 20 shots inside the box, 9 on target. So yeah, he's still a strong asset, but he's 8.9, and you're comparing him, so that's 1.4 more than Mateta, and it's almost as much as Isak. And so that, I mean, Watkins, very likely to have a double. Newcastle, Man City. On paper, that doesn't look great, but I think that's okay. I think he could do all right in them. But I don't know whether he's going to play.
Yeah, that's the issue. Am I right in saying he was on the bench for the cup game as well?
He was. I mean, Rashford did well. I mean, I know he's come back from an injury as well, but I still just don't know. They have options.
Yeah. There's so many options and so many games. I was looking just before we started. I think they're Wednesday, Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday for the next 3 weeks. So it's very busy for Villa. And I think Watkins is going to be the differential forward pick for wildcarders. If you're chasing at the moment, it's a bit of a nightmare because wildcards are going to be similar. It's going to be hard to make up ground. So this is where you look at something like a Watkins over a Marmoush or an Even Nielsen as your third forward. And I mean, whichever third forward I'm going to go for, he's got big boots to fill because he's going to be filling Chiwomi's boots, who's been an absolute superstar for me this season.
Legend.
But Watkins at 8.9. With a very busy schedule, with Asensio, Rashford, loads of options. I just don't think he's going to make it into my top 3.
No. Next guy on the list is probably the guy I'm going to bring in. It's Marmoush. I was considering it anyway, But Haaland being injured, walking away on crutches, he's at home to Leicester. He will probably start up front, I would imagine, in place of Haaland. And it's just the absolute plum game. If I'm wildcarding in 31, 32, I might not necessarily still keep him, but it gives... So that seems ideal for those who are wildcarding a bit later. And by that, I mean a week or two. Anyway, Marmoush has got 4 goals and 1 assist in just 6 starts this calendar year, because obviously he's new to the league. 4 shots inside the box, not many, but yeah, he's got long range shots. He's created 8 chances, so he's all round, and he's starting. I just think the guy who's going to start up front against Leicester at home is the guy. So I would imagine he would be in your wildcard team, but you're wildcarding, so this is for ideally for the rest of the season rather than just a week or two like me.
Yeah, again, I just think Mateta, Isak, Marmoush, get used to seeing that, because that is going to be the staple front three. And it's like you say, if you've got a Marmoush who's very likely to start up front against Leicester, you do not need to think about anything else. You just get him.
Yeah.
And yes, it might not be a long-term thing, but that's why we've got transfers. And you get him in, you keep an eye on the Haaland situation, and if the Haaland situation is a bad one in terms of layoff wise, it could be great. Marmoush could be a season keeper then. So again, I think for wildcarders or for people using a transfer this week to get rid of someone like Acuna, then I think Marmoush is just an easy choice.
Yeah. Obviously, I haven't included Chris Wood in this list because I've put best forwards 2025 who are not injured at the moment. And Chris Wood, we don't know when he's going to come back. Seems very unlikely it's going to be within the next few days. The next name on here, I put him in here because he was just the next name that came up when in terms of minutes per expected goal involvement. He doesn't double, but he could. There's a possibility he could double in 36, but he doesn't double as far as we know for 33. And so he'll play in 34. The reason I've got him is Abba Nielsen. He's 5.7. So if you need budget, if you just need a good striker who's 5.7, doesn't double, but you've got to make up the money. Because I've played around with some wildcard drafts, and some of them you think, I can't afford that 7-8 million player. I could get a 5.7 though. And that's what he is. He's had 10 shots inside the box from just 3 starts. And that's strong. 6 chances created and scored within those 3 starts. And also he's done well in the cup, or rather looked okay in the cup as well. So, if you were to get a single game week player and you needed the budget, you don't want to go Chiwomi deep. You want to go Evan Nielsen deep. Would you go for him or another one?
I like Evan Nielsen, but I would be more inclined, and I am more inclined to keep Kluivert in midfield. And, I'm probably going to go 3-4-3 on the wild card, but I would prefer a 3-5-2 with Kluivert than Evan Nielsen up front. So, he's a good option. I think when people start looking at these upcoming bench boosts for people who have them left, people might spend more on their goalkeepers than they usually would. You could go Ederson, Raya double up, for example, because there is Haaland money, floating about at the moment, and then that might mean you do need a cheap forward or a cheap midfielder. So certainly Evan Nielsen is in the mix, but it's the issue going against him is the others have the double game week, so they're always going to win out.
Okay, let's have a look at a possible wildcard template you could go for. There's some blanks here, and I think, for example, in the goalkeeper position, that we just don't know at the moment who that person would be, and it's all going to depend on budget. So what I got up on the screen, just to describe it for those listening to the podcast version, I use the FPL Planner tool, Fantasy Football Scout on the app. I had a look at that, and I just cleared my team and just started again from scratch, and just went through it and see who I would possibly get on a wildcard based on a lot that I've seen on the Fantasy Football Scout forum and social media. I've also listed here, just as a reminder, in double game week 32, we definitely know that Crystal Palace and Newcastle definitely have a double game week, and very likely double game weeks in 33 due to European commitments largely, will be Crystal Palace, Man City, Aston Villa and Arsenal. So it's not loads, but it's certainly more than double game week 32. So I'll sort of go through this sort of position by position. Well, I'll quickly read out what I've got, and then we'll then we'll go back to it. So I've gone Raya as a goalkeeper, and the other goalkeeper I don't know. I've just left it blank. The back line, Gvardiol I've seen in pretty much every wildcard draft. Gabriel, every wildcard draft. Munoz, every wildcard draft there. I've also seen a Newcastle defender, Livramento or Burn. So take your pick there. But I'd end up on the bench this week. I've got Palmer in here because I personally like the price point there because it gives you the flexibility to possibly get Haaland if you wanted to with 2 transfers. But it also means keep a watch on Saka. If he comes back and does really well against Fulham, you're going to want him in. And wildcard is in 31 and 32 like me, will get Saka in. I put Sarr in here. I couldn't afford Eze. Mohamed Salah, he's there. He's the captain for this week. Kluivert is there, but I think it's slightly questionable because I think going forward I might want Rodgers there because he doubles and he just does not rotate. So I think I would prefer Rodgers over Kluivert for that price point, and he's a bit cheaper. Mateta, Marmoush, Isak, that's just locked in. So I think some of the defenders there. And on the bench, I've gone for Gordon because I think you're going to want him in for Game Week 32, but he's injured and he's suspended, I think, for this game week anyway. But Game Week 31 and 32 wildcarders, so I'm sort of anticipating what they're going to do. And I've also got another blank on the bench in defender point. At the moment, it's got Milenkovic, because he was just in my team, Nottingham Forest. But that could be, say, a Konsa, but, I mean, you've had Konsa, so... and I know he hasn't really actually been getting many points there. So, looking at this team, before we look at the sort of positions, which players for you would be a lock, and which do you think, I'm not going to go there? Or would you go for this structure?
Yeah, definitely the structure. I like the 3-4-3, and a lot of these I think are locks for me. Munoz number 1, easy. Gabriel will stay in my team as well. They'll have a double game week. Gvardiol, absolute shoe-in as well. I know there was talk of an injury during the international break for him, but he seems to be okay now, I think, so I'll just keep an eye on that situation. Yeah. The Salah will stay. I think Kluivert will stay short term and maybe go to Rodgers later rather than doing that right now. You know, maybe Rodgers doesn't come in until the actual double game week happens for Villa. Ismail Sarr, I think, is possibly a lock as well for me. Even though, you know, traditionally we like Eze fantasy-wise, but I just think on this current season, Sarr's been better. And I like the 1 million saving. And there was a couple of stats that surprised me again. I was on the Scout website during the break. I think Sarr ranks, I'm going to say, number 6 among midfielders for expected goal involvement for the season. So his numbers are good. I know he blanked for a long time, but he's been in the goals again recently. So I do like the 1 million saving over Eze, because Eze doesn't take pens. It's probably going to be Mateta, and he's not taking as many corners. So I do like Sarr. The Palmer position is definitely up for grabs. It could be Palmer. I could go back there, having just sold him. But I'm inclined to just plug Saka in straight away. Could even bench Saka this week if I think he's going to be on the Arsenal bench. And then up front, don't need to talk about that. That will be my front 3. The bench picks, goalkeepers, again, I do fancy David Raya to go alongside Gabriel. And then I'm probably looking at another goalkeeper that's likely to double in Game Week 33, so probably Emi Martinez or one of those.
Yeah.
I think I like Dan Burn slightly more than Livramento, maybe just a little bit more security in terms of minutes. Gordon I will consider as well, because I like the idea of having him later. But Jacob Murphy's also very good for very cheap.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
and
so
then
I
the final defensive spot, sorry, just to finish, you mentioned Konsa. If I go Martinez, I probably won't go Konsa. But if I don't go Martinez, I might go Konsa. But it could also be a second Man City defender. I've seen a few people doing that, some like a Kusanov. But I'd probably keep that open for a Foden or a Savio or maybe even Haaland, you know. So
yeah, no, I mean, looking at the doubles, so you want to the bench. These are the. It's one of the reasons I'm not wildcarding at the moment, because it's just these spots here I can't fill them there, and it's finding that defender. So possibly a Crystal Palace. So possibly, you know, there is a case for a sort of a goalkeeper of like getting Henderson in and Munoz and having that alongside him, you know, just Mateta, no Sarr. But the other defender there, so the doubles, it's a Man City double. double Man City defence, though, so it feels like a risk. Like, who's going to start and will they keep a clean sheet? It's Aston Villa appeal, I think, but they've got tough ones. Newcastle, Man City, tough from a defensive point of view. Martinez, I think I would go with because I think I agree there. And then you've just got Arsenal left, Ipswich and Crystal Palace. And that is making me think you've got Raya Gabriel. And I've heard talk, and I actually, it locks you out of Saka, but triple Arsenal defence would solve this problem. And boy, so the Arsenal defence, if you got them in now, you got Fulham at home, Everton away, Brentford at home. You've got the double of Ipswich Crystal Palace, which is pretty good. And then you've got you presumably free hit in 34 because you're stocked up with doublers. And then you've got Bournemouth in 35. And it gets a bit tricky towards the end, but you end on Southampton. So, yeah, triple Arsenal defence. I mean, it's not for me, but I can see the logic in it.
Yeah, it's usually not for me as well. It's heart attack inducing stuff on a Saturday when you're waiting for 3 clean sheets to come in at 4:45. But it's definitely viable, and it's something I am definitely going to consider for the next 24 hours or so. With Saka, obviously I would like to have him, but I would like to have a fully fit firing Saka.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'm going to get that. And there could be a scenario where it's been a long layoff. His minutes could be very carefully managed, in the run up to Champions League and stuff like that. So Raya, Gabriel, even Saliba, as safe as it comes in terms of minutes, and go that way and just bank on those clean sheets and hopefully some attacking returns from the centre backs. It's because, like you say, then no Saka opens the door for other stuff. It opens the door for Palmer to stay with 3 good fixtures. You could even take a punt on a Foden or a Savinho. So yeah, it's I remember doing it a couple of seasons ago. I ended up in triple Newcastle defence, and I swore I would never do it again. But Arsenal's a different story. Best defence in the league, back the clean sheets, and then hope that Saka either gets reduced minutes or doesn't do too much damage. And I don't really fear him that much.
I think what I find interesting about this wildcard template at the moment, and I don't think it's going to change drastically in 31, 32, but as I said, there's these certain things, certain combinations, triple Arsenal defence, double Crystal Palace defence, all these types of things. Some of these fringe players might emerge. Clivert is still an issue, so you're already booking in a transfer for Clivert to say Rodgers for 33, ideally. But you want Clivert for this week as well, because he's at home to Ipswich. So I still feel there's quite a lot up in the air, but there's also quite a lot that won't change, which is why I think people could feel fairly confident wildcarding now. But yeah, the Saka issue and Palmer issue, there are certain other things around this. I looked at this draft, and when Haaland would be an issue. So you and I are, pretty much not keen on getting Haaland in. Even when you got him in last time, he cost you 10 points because you would have captained someone else. And that's what he cost you. He cost you not captaining Salah or Bruno Fernandes against Leicester. And so I was always resigned to that. But lots of people were very keen on having Haaland. But you look at this template here, it's got 8.3 in the bank, 2 spots to go. So I've got to go for a dirt cheap defender. And I can't get like an Edison or something. I probably can't get Martinez. I've got to go for like an Areola probably as a goalkeeper. But imagine this with Haaland. So no Marmouche, but you've got to slap on another 8 million cost of a Haaland going in there. And suddenly the corners you've got to cut there. You probably can't have Isak and Palmer. You can't have, well, you certainly can't. Triple Arsenal defence is just a dream. For you to have. You can't have it in reality. And there's just too many corners to cut. So I just think, I hope that people see that really and see the 14.7 cost of Haaland and go, is it worth it?
Yeah, you've definitely planted a seed with me with the triple Arsenal defence. The defence is probably the hardest part to finalise on this wild card. But if 2 of them are Arsenal and one of them's Munoz and one of them's Gvardiol, you're basically there.
Yeah.
And you think, Saka versus Palmer. Can Palmer match or outscore Saka for the rest of the season? Definitely. Even if Saka has an extra fixture, because even with an extra fixture, Palmer might get more minutes because he's, fitness is probably better. So yeah, there's certainly a lot to chew on here. I also like triple Arsenal defense because most people like us are reluctant to do it in the first place, so it's going to be different.
Yeah.
Certainly in mini leagues. So yeah, I'm certainly going to weigh that up.
There's certainly strong potential there, and also there's bonus point potential. So say if you went Raya, Gabriel, and Saliba, I haven't seen any sort of the robot optimized type teams. What the analytics crew thinking, but I can imagine triple Arsenal defense in there. It would just be the kind of thing that would look odd if you're human, but if you're like a robot and you use analytics at it, it would actually like make sense and probably do really well.
Yeah, like you have. I haven't listened. I always listen to Sarah Top and Bass on FPL Optimize. I haven't listened to it yet, but I can already predict it. I can already hear Sarah Top's voice in my head saying the ideal wildcard team is Raya, Gabriel, Saliba.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's maybe I say it's going to be different, but maybe that's what analytics folk will be doing anyway.
Okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to put your next week team up because you seem pretty like 99.9% certain to press the button for the wild cards. I think a lot of people would look at most of this team and think pretty good. So do you want to just take us through your current team? And if you weren't wildcarding, what you would do to make this a viable, strong team for Gameweek 30?
Yeah, so Pickford in goal away to Liverpool. Straight away, I don't like that. Nico Williams plays Manchester United. Gabriel and Konsa. That's okay. I don't really like Konsa away to Brighton. The midfield's good. Captain Salah against Everton. Bruno Fernandes against Forest. So he's up against one of my defenders. Kluivert, Brandon Mbeumo, Jared Bowen. I don't love Jared Bowen. And then up front, Chris Wood's flagged, and Haaland will be flagged soon if he's not already. And on the bench, no depth really. Chiwomi, Mikalenko flagged away to Liverpool, and Castagna away to Arsenal. So I just look at it and I just think it's wildcard time. Yeah. I don't like the goalkeeper. I don't like the defence. I don't like the forwards. I've only got one free transfer. I've got no Palace. I've got no Newcastle. I've got enough information that I'm confident whatever happens, I can, just ride out the season with the chips and all that kind of stuff. So I like the idea of just attacking 30 try to set up as well as I can for Gameweek 30, hopefully a decent green arrow, and then just kick on after that.
Yeah, definitely. I think if I were you, I would definitely be seriously considering a wild card, put it that way, especially if I only had one transfer left. If I had two transfers, I would probably just switch Wood and Haaland to or rather Haaland and Chiwomi to Marmoush and Isak, for example, and just leave it at that. But if you've only got one, that's an issue.
Even just a -4, it's like I don't want to take a -4 when I've got a wild card. Why would I sacrifice the points?
I mean, you and I and many others watching this will think, well, I'm going to wild card at some point in the next week or two. And I thought the same with hits as well. Okay. I hope that's been of use to everyone, whether you're wildcarding or not, whether you've already used your wildcard, whether you're using it later or you're using it this week or in a week or two there. I think I speak for Mark as well, but it certainly helped me as well get my thoughts together about my team. And I think that's the important thing. And a message I gave earlier, look at your team. Don't listen to me or Mark or whoever else. Just look at your team and think, do you think it would benefit from a wild card now? Do you feel confident with that? Or is your team actually okay for Gameweek 30? Did you have any sort of final thoughts before we go?
No, just one. I think one important thing to mention is those who still have the assistant manager chip. I think the best time is probably 31, 32, 33. And you're probably looking at, hopefully you're going to get back-to-back Glasners at Crystal Palace. Yeah. But you've got to remember, if you still have your wild card, that you can't use that while that's active. So that might be a reason to go wild card 30, assistant manager 31, 32, 33. Maybe free hit 34 if you still have it, and then triple captain bench boost at a later date. So just remember that, and easy to forget too if you're wild carding. If you're wild carding this week and you're going to do assistant manager 31, make sure you have the money for the manager. It's very easy to forget that you need to pay for this manager next week. So. Keep your 1.5 or whatever it might be. Yeah,
and do remember, this is something that may catch those that wildcard now out, that those teams that are in the FA Cup, when they go through to the semi-final, in Gameweek 36, there is the possibility that some of them actually double in that game week. We don't know that. None of them will, maybe. but some of them might. So we might be facing some of those, but they will likely involve many teams that we've already doubled up on there. Exciting times.
Yeah.
We'll see you again next week. Take care. See you soon.
Bye-bye.